keep the most challenging thing in front of me.
Wow. Wow.
He said, I always keep the most, he said, instead of thinking my best days are over, I always keep the most challenging assignment ahead of me.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm like, got it. So he said, I'm like Caleb. You know, Caleb was 82 when he got into the promised land. He said, you know how Caleb stayed encouraged? He stayed encouraged by reminding himself that his greatest days were ahead of him.
Wow. So good. Wow.
So we had lots of things. We talked a lot at dinner. But I want to tell you that, once in a while you have a conversation with someone that actually does change your life.
Yes.
And I walked out of that meeting and I said, the greatest things in my life are ahead of me.
Awesome. Awesome.
And then so that was about a month ago. Then about a week ago, I was laying on the floor and just praying at home. And the Lord said, you're thinking too small. You're thinking too small.
Wow.
And I was actually praying about the school, and I was telling the Lord, we need to grow the school to 3,000. And the Lord said, you're thinking too small.
Oh.
You're thinking 3,000. I'm thinking 5,000. You're thinking cities. I'm thinking nations.
Wow.
You're thinking of church of 10,000. I'm thinking of church of 15,000. You're thinking too small. I want you to think bigger. As a man thinks, so is he. And the Lord's like, you're thinking too small. And so I was like, how big does God think? And of course that became, yes, that one, everybody's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, Lord, how big do you think? And he said, universes. Think universes. I'm like,
wow.
Okay, that's too big for me. I think I'll do nations. That would be easier. I'll think nations. But I think it's important for us to continue to grow ourselves. Till the day we walk out of this life and into the next, it's important that we think our best days, our most fruitful days are ahead of us. And we all, as we age, I think that we all realize that there are things we're not as capable at as we used to be in certain areas. And I play basketball. I'm 62, so most of the guys I play with are in their 20s, and I'm reminded every week, 3 times a week, that my capacity is not what it used to be. Part of the challenge is my mind still thinks it can do it, but my body don't know that at all. So consequently, I foul a lot. They're like, Valentin, you foul a lot. I'm like, it's because I think I can get there, but then I can't. But I'm also aware that there's grace on my life that I didn't have when I was young.
Yes.
There's experience in my life I didn't have when I was young. And there's an anointing on my life that I couldn't purchase, but I did live through. And I believe that every time that we go through something, every time we go through a trial and we actually pass that trial, and sometimes, how many know you can't flunk any of the Lord's tests? You just get to take it over again. Thus I remember some Israelites taking the test over and over. So you don't ever flunk one of God's tests. He's like, oh, that's good. You got 3 right out of 100. Okay, that's better than last time. Maybe we only got 1 right last time. So, and the Lord, he doesn't, you don't get to, he doesn't graduate you up because of your age, right?
Right.
Like we do in school, it's like, okay, we held you back twice and you're still dumb, but the Lord doesn't do that. Like, you can be dumb your whole life and stay in first grade. The Lord's like, yes, you're still in first grade. That's amazing. But when we go through things, and how many know trials don't create your character, they just reveal it.
Yes. That's a good
Nobody
statement.
makes you mad. Mad had to be in there.
That's good. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Nobody makes us mad. That person made me mad. No, mad was in there. That person found it for you.
Yeah.
They created the circumstances where you could see it, because how many know if I can't see it, I can't get to it. So but nobody makes you mad. But what I'm learning is that when I actually I might go around the mountain 10 times, but on the 11th time I finally get it right. And when I get it right, my personal victory becomes corporate grace.
That's good.
Like I actually get grace And how many understand that grace is not just undeserved favor.
Right.
Grace is the operational power of God. When the Bible says you got saved by grace, I got saved by grace, it doesn't just mean you didn't deserve it. It means you were held by hell,
Oh, Lord Jesus.
and you
Thank
needed
you,
a
Lord.
power to pull you out of darkness
Yes.
and into light.
Yes.
So it's not just undeserved favor, it's the power of God. Right?
Yes.
And so when you're weak and He says grace to you, it's not just like, oh, undeserved favor. It's literally that He gives you strength in your weakness.
So good.
And grace, in fact, Ephesians chapter 1, I would have brought my Bible, except for it's also on the plane.
Oh.
Who needs a Bible when you've memorized the entire thing? Of course, I've forgotten it. So, but Ephesians chapter 1 says that the manifold grace of God was lavished on us. And so, and he says, in all riches, His grace was lavished on us. And so, His riches, like in America or in humanity, if I said George was rich, you would think he had a lot of money. So the current, but in heaven, when God says you're rich, the currency of heaven is measured in grace.
That's awesome.
And so what happens is that every time you go through a trial and you actually get through that trial in a kingdom way, how many know grace is given to you? And what happens is in the twilight years in our life, when we can no longer perform at the level we did, the greatest grace is actually hidden in the twilight years of our life. Thus, and the Jewish culture knows it. It's called the laying on of hands. We think of the laying on of hands as a way that we pray for the sick. But actually, in Hebrew culture, they laid hands on people to transfer inheritance. So the lowest level of life is curses, right? A curse means you can do the right thing, but the wrong thing still happens. It means you don't get what you deserve. So you'll remember the first curse was on Adam, and God says you're going to till the ground, you're going to work hard, but it's going to yield thorns and thistles. So you're not going to get what you deserve. But how many of you understand the next level of life is sowing and reaping? That means you get what you deserve. You sowed and you reaped. But how many know that the greatest level of life is not sowing and reaping? It's inheritance. That means you get what you didn't deserve. You get what others worked for.
Yes.
And then in the Hebrew culture, the way you transferred this inheritance from one person to another is that you laid hands on them. You'll remember that Jacob deceived his father Isaac out of the birthright. His father laid hands on him. Esau was the oldest by 3 minutes. They were twins. He was the one, if you will, in Hebrew culture, deserving of the birthright. And I know you know the story. I'm not going to go through the whole story. But basically, Jacob, through his mother's counsel, deceives his father, pretends to be Esau. His father is blind. Isaac releases the blessing to Jacob. Now think about this. He releases the blessing to Jacob. Esau comes in 2 hours later at what's supposed to be the inauguration of the inheritance passing to him. He says to his father, "Father, I'm here for you to bless me." And his father said, Who was it I just blessed?
Yeah.
And here's the important part for this conversation. Esau said, "Bless me too." And Jacob said, Isaac said, "I already gave it all to Jacob." So literally, what was invisible was still tangible.
Wow.
In other words, it wasn't just like, "I bless you, I bless you." Literally, an inheritance passed from Isaac to Jacob.
Yeah.
And although it was not tangible, it still was experienceable.
Wow. Wow.
It still had, what I'm trying to say, it wasn't like, pray for me. It was like something actually passed.
Yes.
Grace, if you can think of it, like Isaac had this much grace, if you can think of it like in in a human sense, and he gave it all to Jacob, and therefore he couldn't give it to Esau because literally he didn't have it anymore.
Wow.
It passed to him. And so when Jacob is old, it's in Genesis 49, Jacob is old. He too is blind. Joseph comes to his father Jacob and says, "Father, bless my sons, Ephraim and Manasseh." Do you remember the story?
Yes, yes.
And of course, again, Jacob is blind. So Joseph, takes the oldest son, puts him on his right knee. The younger son puts him on his left knee. And Jacob does this.
Yeah.
And puts the right hand on the younger son.
Yeah.
And Joseph starts yelling, "No, Father, no, Father, no, Father." Now, you think, why is he making such a scene? Well, first of all, he knows the story of his father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who his uncle Esau was supposed to get the birthright, but that his grandfather Isaac passed the birthright, the blessing, if you will, on to his father Jacob. And a few minutes later, when Esau walks in the room and says, "Bless me," the blessing's passed. So he understands that once Jacob, his father, now puts the greater blessing, the right-handed blessing on the younger son, he can't take it back.
Sure.
He knows the story because his father has told him the story. So he takes his father's hands, and he takes his right hand and he puts it on the older son and says, "No, Father, no, Father, no, Father." Like, don't talk, because we know that once you pass it, you can't get it back.
True. Wow.
And Jacob says to him, "Joseph, I know what I'm doing. Even though I'm blind, I understand that I put my right hand on the younger son." And he says, "Manasseh shall be great, but Ephraim shall be greater." What I'm getting at is in Jewish culture, they're even concerned about what hand. We've lost
Yeah, for sure.
respect
Wow.
for the grace that's on people because we have a performance-based culture.
Yes.
And we only value people after what they can do and not after who they are.
It's true.
So God hides the greatest grace in the twilight years of our life. So when we can no longer perform, at least at the level that we could, that only people who have eyes to see and ears to hear can find it. In other words, if they don't know us if they only know us after the flesh and not after the spirit, then they don't even know there's an inheritance.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose to you that the greatest treasures in our country are probably in convalescent hospitals where
Oh,
people get left
wow.
alone in their twilight years
Wow.
because nobody actually understands
Wow.
where God hides treasures.
Wow. Wow.
So how many understand that as we age, we don't have less vision, but we have different vision?
Yeah. Yeah. For
Because
sure.
I get to take everything that I went through and give it to somebody as an inheritance, so that not only do they not have to do what I did, but they can be who I am without the journey.
Oh, so good. So good.
Are you with me?
Yes.
It means that what I spent years working for, they can get for free, and literally then our ceiling becomes their floor. Literally,
Yes.
because they don't have to start way back here.
Yeah.
I love the Donald Trump story. I'm not in a political. I'm talking about the business story that his father gave him. I think he actually gave him like $3 million. Well, that sounds like a lot of money, but how many know it's not? Doesn't hold a candle to $1 billion. And my point is this: is that I love the fact that somebody grows up wealthy and they get wealthier, instead of someone grows up wealthy and they blow their father's inheritance.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for people that they receive an inheritance and they grow it bigger.
Yeah.
And then they get their own kids in business, and their kids, instead of blowing their father's $1 billion, become good at... Are you with me?
Yes.
I mean, there's something to be said for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah.
Because how many understand that so many times in the Bible, someone receives an inheritance and they spend their life getting rid of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So Elijah has Elisha. Great, right? He gets a double portion. What's a double portion mean, actually? It means he got everything Elijah worked for, he got for free. Plus what he worked for. So that's a double portion.
Yeah.
In other words, it's like if you invest $1 and someone says, for every $1 you invest in this, I'll give one. So he got all of Elijah's grace plus the grace. So it was added on to the grace he already had from Elijah. Elisha has a double portion. He has his and Elijah's. But guess what happened when he tried to pass it on to Gehazi? Gehazi's a thief. Instead of it being Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, instead of it being Elijah, Elisha, and Gehazi, instead of there being a tri-dimensional blessing, Gehazi sells out his blessing. Remember, Elisha heals the... it wasn't Haman, it was Naaman, the leper. And he says, I want to pay you. And Elisha's like, no, tell him I don't take money. And Gehazi runs after him and says, my master changed his mind. He'll take some of your money. And Gehazi takes the money of Naaman, hides it in his tent, comes back to Elisha's house. And Elisha said, where have you been? My heart went with you.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And as you know, Gehazi ends up with leprosy. And instead of it being Elijah, Elisha, and Gehazi, Elisha dies with the grace that's supposed to be passed on.
Wow.
A soldier gets thrown into his grave and rises from the dead. That's a great story, but the sad part is that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
That grace was supposed to go to Gehazi. It wasn't supposed to die with him. How many of us have grace that isn't being passed? Are you listening to where I'm going?
Yes.
Do you see I'm on a journey?
Yeah.
This isn't a teaching. It's an exhortation to make sure that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob happens. How many know God's not the God of three people? He's the God of a legacy.
Yes.
God's the God of a legacy.
Yes, yes.
He's not the God of a ministry.
Amen.
God's the God of a legacy. God wants what happened to you to benefit other people.
Jesus.
What if my sons and daughters don't value it? Find people who do. But don't let them bury you. We have all this crazy news about grave sucking. Does Bethel believe in grave sucking? So crazy, So crazy. And people, I get newspaper and magazines all the time. Right, Searchlight want to interview me right now. I'm like, if you're going to ask me about grave sucking, I am not answering that question one more time.
Yeah.
Do you believe in grave sucking? I don't know. I went to Churchill's house, and there was a lot of other people there too. So I guess we were all grave sucking. I thought we were honoring Churchill. Well, there's something about being in the house Churchill grew up in. There's something about being in the house that Churchill.
Yes.
I walked through Churchill's house. It's some of you have probably been there. Have some of you been to Churchill's house? It's kind of a very rustic, I would call it a rustic mansion. It was old when he got it, and he added on to it. It's pretty credible, really. It's not credible like a palace. It's credible in a different way. But, it's large. I would say it's maybe 7,000 square feet, maybe 8,000. It's fairly large. It's and it's kind of like a rustic logish kind of cabin. It's not a cabin really. It's just you kind of get the idea. It's rustic but cool, and it's full of trophy cases. So every room has a trophy case of all the things that Churchill was given from world leaders.
Wow.
And Danny, Sherry, and myself, Danny, Sherry, Silk, and myself, we went on this tour, and we're walking through Churchill's house, and it's a guided tour. So there's 3 or 4 tour guides ahead of us, taking some other groups, and we're kind of with the group of about 5 or 8. And everyone's talking about, and they're telling you about the different things that are in the trophy cases, and it's funny. I collect knives and watches and pens, and I didn't even look in the trophy cases. We passed this room, and the tour guide said, "This is where Churchill." There was a path. It was a wood floor, and there was a path that was literally wore out, where Churchill walked back and forth during the war.
Wow.
And there was a worn couch where he knelt, and the leather was worn where he knelt and prayed, and there was scuff marks that were in the floor where he would kneel and pray for hours during the war.
Wow.
And I found myself imagining what it was like for Churchill to walk back and forth in those troubling days when Hitler was trying to take the world over. And a very broken man. Churchill was a very broken man. He had extreme issues with depression.
Wow.
He called it his black dog. I don't know if you know this, but they actually stationed people with Churchill in seasons 24 hours a day.
Wow.
So he didn't kill himself. Many times in his life he was suicidal.
Wow.
And so here's a broken man trying to lead a country, pacing the floors to the place where he wore out a path in a wood floor. How many know that takes a lot of pacing? And I wasn't there so I could grave suck Churchill. But there was something about the grace in the room, if I could get a little bit spiritual.
Yeah, careful.
I don't want to say that it was literally in the walls, but maybe it was in my imagination. Maybe I went there and found faith for grace that was on Churchill.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the experience that caused me to extend faith and say to God, God, I want this leadership mantle.
Wow.
I don't want the pacing of floors. I want what Churchill learned in the pacing of floors.
Yeah.
I want to have peace in the storm. The peace he found through many nights of pacing. I want that peace without the pacing.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I want.
Wow.
I want the peace that he found kneeling by this leather couch. And everybody else kept on doing the tour, and I walked outside, and there was a bench right outside there, and I just sat at the bench for an hour and wept while they finished.
Wow.
It wasn't grave sucking. I was connecting my faith to grace of a man's life, a very broken man who learned some things through trials.
Yes.
That, Lord, can I have this grace that Churchill found through trials? Is it possible you could pass this grace to me? That I could walk this generation through tough times without the fear.
Yeah. Wow.
And what I'm getting at is this, is that you have grace on your life.
Thank you, Lord.
Because God doesn't measure our value by our performance.
So good. So good.
I told a story here some years ago, but it's been a while since I've been here. And knowing that you're older, you probably wouldn't have remembered if I was here a month ago. Hey, I'm with you.
You understand.
If I was the pastor here, I'd be in here with you all. You know I'm teasing you. But years ago, I was in the prayer chapel. It would have been about 17 years ago. I was in the prayer chapel, and I don't know how this happens, but I was laying on the floor, and I was taken 100 years into the future.
Wow.
Now, how do you know you're 100 years in the future? I don't know. It's just one of those things that happen. I was taken 100 years in the future, and I was in this beautiful mansion. It was I don't know, it was a palace or a mansion. I was inside. And there was an old man standing next to me, and he couldn't see me, but I could see him personally, perfectly. And he had some children around him, and it was like, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or if it was like a family reunion, but it was like the entire family, this old man's entire family was there. And they were all busy. The men were in there watching TV, and the women were cooking, and the teenagers were hanging out doing stuff, and the children and the little children. And the old man was sitting in the front room with these children, and he was doing what old men do. he was telling them, thank you for your pastoral gift. God bless
Yeah,
you. May all
amen.
your camels prosper.
Amen. Yeah.
He was doing what old men do. He was telling them, the children, about their history. And then suddenly, in the vision, the old man's voice began to change. As if he was getting serious. And he began to look out as if he was peering into the future. And he began to talk about their divine history. And as he did, everyone stopped what they were doing. They all began to gather in this ornate, beautiful front room. There was a fireplace made out of stone that began at the floor and went up about 30 feet into the air. It was this beautiful, ornate fireplace. And as the old man began to recount their divine history and their prophetic destiny, you could hear a pin drop on the floor as every single person, young and old, listened to the old man as he recounted their divine history.
Wow.
And then I'm standing next to the old man. He still can't see me. And then he goes like this. He stands and he goes, and all of this, and I know in the vision he means all of this favor, all of this wealth, all of this power, all of this favor with God. He goes, all of this began, and he points to the fireplace, and over the fireplace is a large portrait of Kathy Manning. And he says, and all of this began with your great-great-great-grandmother and grandfather.
Wow.
And immediately I came out of the vision, and I'm now back in that prayer house, laying on the floor. And the Lord said, quit your ministry and build a legacy. He said, I want you to live for a generation that you will never see. If any of you have read my book, Heavy Rain, I wrote that book. I wrote that book about 3 years after the encounter, but I was already writing notes for that book. And the opening, I dedicated that book to something like this. I'm writing this book to my children's 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 children. That when you read this book, I will be watching you from heaven. But I want you to know that when I wrote this book, I wrote every single word with you in mind.
Wow.
Because I began to think about, Father, how? So if I'm supposed to live for a generation I'll never see, how do I influence a generation I'll never see? And I remembered the story of Habakkuk. God said, Habakkuk, I'm going to give you a vision, but it's not for now.
Yeah.
It's for another time. That those who listen to this, who read it, will help me.
Run.
Run.
With it.
How many know that our life in God is typically described as a walk?
Yeah, true.
And God says, when those who read it, they will run.
Run with it. Yeah.
And God's reminded me of Habakkuk, that Habakkuk was right to write to a generation. Not the generation that was with him, but the generation that was to come.
Wow. Wow, wow. Yeah.
My father drowned when I was 3. And my stepfather was very jealous of my father, who's dead, which is obviously not rational. And therefore he destroyed all my father's stuff. My father was a track star, had football. He played most every sport. And he got drafted to the NFL. This is the early days of the NFL when those guys that played in the NFL, they had to have jobs because the NFL didn't pay very much. So my father literally did not play for the NFL because he had already had 2 children. And so the year after my father was drafted to the NFL, again, he didn't play, he drowned. So my father had all these trophies and all these, he was a very great athlete. My stepfather destroyed all of my stuff, all of the trophies, everything, every picture. And it was, it wasn't good. And years ago, fast forward, about 10 years ago, there was a woman her name was Martha, and a man named Willie. They were pastoring a church in Eureka. They became good friends of mine, and Martha had contracted MS. And this is a very long story, so I want to just give you the short story. The short story is that Martha died. The year before Martha died, she had a downturn in her health. And, I got to tell you this part. So, after Martha contracted MS, she got pregnant and had another baby, which is pretty amazing. It's not a miracle, but it's very uncommon. So she has 2 little children. So when those children were, I think the oldest was 5, and I think or 6, and the daughter was 3. She went into a coma, and Willie called me and said, Martha, the doctor said Martha will not last through the night. So Kathy and I drove to Eureka, got there late at night to pray for her. She was in a coma, so she obviously couldn't interact with us. And I said to Willie, did Martha write anything to her children? Because I said to Willie, I would give anything if my father would have wrote one letter about what he was thinking of me.
Wow.
I would give $100,000 for a paragraph of what my father was thinking of me. And he said to me, no, Martha never wanted to do a recording or write a letter to the children because she didn't want to have a plan B. She just wanted to believe God was going to heal her.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I said, well, Willie, if anything happens and Martha happens to come out of this coma, she needs to spend her days recording her thoughts for her children. So we pray for her. We leave. The next morning she comes out of the coma and she lives another year.
Wow.
Praise God.
And she spent her days recording actually, her thoughts for her children. Now her daughter is 13. I saw her the other day. She's grown to be a very beautiful girl. Her son is 16. I think that's close. And I was thinking, these kids 10 years from now are going to want to know what Mama was thinking about them. There's something about living for a generation.
So good. Wow.
Infecting and affecting the generations ahead of us. That is a mandate on us. And the idea that we have nothing to give or that nobody wants us is a lie from the devil.
Yes, it is.
Malachi 4 says, in the last days I'm going to send Elijah the prophet. He's going to restore the hearts of fathers. The hearts of fathers. Just not just relationships. The hearts, the value for fathers and sons. Mothers and daughters. And what I'm getting at is this. The most asked question in school ministry. How do I find a spiritual father? How do I find a spiritual mother? Every year, it's the most asked question. How do I get adopted?
Oh, yeah.
How do I get adopted?
Yeah.
My spiritual father, Bill Derryberry, he must have 20 of my students that drive up and see him. They rotate to see him. He's 84.
Oh, so good.
And he said to me, we have lunch about every other month, and he said to me, you and the students keep me alive.
Yeah, yeah.
You're the reason I stayed on the earth.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm getting at is this, is that we have grace to give. We have grace to give, and not only that, but our greatest years are ahead of us.
Hallelujah.
Until we leave this earth, our greatest years are always ahead of us. Whether we can perform as well as we performed, as whether our memory is as good as it was, all of that in the kingdom doesn't matter. What does matter is we have grace to give to people so that they don't have to, they can get for free what we spent their life
so good.
building.
Wow.
This is our mandate. This is our mandate. And I'll tell you, the world is starving for what's in this room.
Yes.
Right here. The truth is, the world has become a virtual world. I go to virtual church on the internet.
Yep. Yep.
I have a virtual pastor and a virtual experience with virtually nobody. I'm scared to death to have a real relationship because I wasn't raised in a family. Maybe my mama was a drug addict. I don't know who my daddy is, or I haven't seen him. Like you, have no idea how repeated that story is in our culture. It's very common for women to have 2 and 3 and 4 children from several different men.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the morality of it right now. I'm talking about the brokenness of what happens with children who were never belonged to anyone. They never belonged to anyone.
Jesus.
There's a woman, you might want to write this down. If you listen to TED Talks, and by the way, you should. There's a woman on there, her name, she's a social scientist. She has 3 PhDs. Her name is Brene, B-R-E-N-E, Brown. If you haven't listened to her TED Talks, it's the most listened to TED Talk on TED Talks. And she said this, and this is very powerful. She said, what she learned from 6 years of studying humanity and asking this one question, is there one thing that all humans, no matter where they're born, no matter their sex, their ethnic group, the place of their origin, is there one thing that all humans have in common? And here's what she came to with 6 years of research and surveying literally tens of thousands of people. You'll see it on TED Talk. It's only 16 minutes long. She said, we are neurobiologically designed for connection. We would use the word to belong. In fact, she uses the word belong. We are neurobiologically wired to need to belong. And our greatest fear, she said, what she learned is, the greatest fear that we have is that of shame. She said, shame is the enemy of connection. And shame says, I am something wrong. Conviction says, I did something wrong. But shame says, I am something wrong. And she said, shame separates us. And she said, what breaks shame is the power of vulnerability. She said, being real breaks shame and heals people who feel like they don't belong. Well, here's the interesting thing. The answer to the world's cry is right here.
Come on.
You know, many of you are terrified you're going to reach out and people aren't going to reach back. And some won't. But you know what? The greater fear is in the generation that's in front of you. That's younger than you. They are terrified that they're going to reach out and you're not going to reach back. Because they don't even know how to create connection. Because they were raised in a global orphanage.
Wow.
They don't even know how to connect.
Wow.
It's seen in so many ways. They delay marriage into their late 20s and 30s. I have a class full of 2,400 students. Women, beautiful women, who are starving to be married. In a group of men who can't figure out what day it is. This is an ongoing, nearly daily conversation. I have a PA. I had 2 PAs who weren't married. One of them, Jordan, married recently, which is beautiful. Bethany, I mean, she's beautiful. Like, this is the marrying kind. Starving for someone to choose her. But men are afraid of responsibility because they didn't grow up with their daddy teaching them how to actually have responsibility and how to lead a woman. So here we are with all these women. I mean, where would you... This is eHarmony on steroids. I told the men nearly weekly, this is like fishing at the hatchery.
That's right. That's right.
There's 2 girls for every boy. I mean, this is like, and they're all beautiful, and they're all amazing, and they've come from all over the world. 65 students from 65 countries. 953 international students from 65 countries. I mean, you know what? If you want it, you can shop here. This is like shopping at the mall for a woman. But the challenge is that our society doesn't teach people how to do relationship.
It's true.
And the truth is that our men are terrified. I'm not enough. I'm not adequate. I'm going to get in a relationship and I'm not going to know how to connect. I was born into a family that I don't know my dad. Or my mom and dad didn't have a relationship. Or my mom's been married 3 times, my dad 4 times. You don't even know how common that is.
Right.
And so when they think of having a relationship with you, they think, they wouldn't want a relationship with me. I tell them, every year, 2 or 3 times a year, they go, I don't even know where to find a mom. I'm like, have you been to Diamond Fellowship? You ought to try it. You just go in there and go, available. Someone will suck you up. And if they don't have a bit of wisdom, they have food.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
They got food. And how many know we all need wisdom? But how many know you can hire out wisdom?
Yeah.
In our day, you can Google wisdom.
True.
But you can't Google mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't Google dad. You can get on a webinar if you need to know how to answer a certain problem. You understand that? In our day, I don't actually have to have a relationship with someone who's incredibly wise. It's great, and lots of you are, but that doesn't disqualify you because
good,
I don't
Kris.
actually need
That's
wise
good.
people anymore. I got Google.
That's good.
But Google
Good
doesn't
point.
tell me you are amazing in a storm. Google doesn't remind me of who I am on a tough day.
That's good.
Google doesn't tell me you are loved and you are lovable. Google can't tell me
That's so
that
good.
I belong to someone. When David was in a cave, I think I'm supposed to be done.
Sorry.
No.
I think I was supposed to be leaving the meeting 15 minutes ago. I'm finishing. When David was in a cave, it says that all those who were in distress,
Yep.
all those who were disgruntled, all those who were in debt, they gathered to him. And he became the captain over them. I think the first gathering was 400 men.
Yep.
I love this part. That's 1 Samuel 22. 2 Samuel 23 says, and this gets this. And these are the last words of David. And these are the mighty men, get this part, whom David had. They belonged to David.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be great and not belong to somebody.
That's good.
They belonged to David. I'd like to leave you with this. I believe that there are sons and daughters that you didn't give birth to
Yeah.
that belong to you. They belong to you. And you're like, well, no one ever comes up to me. They're terrified of you. They don't even know how to have a relationship with a woman when they have a sex drive.
Yeah.
What do you think they think of you?
Let me think about that.
They don't even know how to have a relationship. And I like to, you want sons and daughters? This is like fishing at the hatchery.
Yeah, sure is.
There's 9,000 people on any given Sunday here.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are supposed to be assigned to you. Well, I don't know what I'd say. You don't have to say anything. Cook.
Yeah. Hug them.
Bring them over and watch the football game together. They don't need words. They need a relationship.
That's it. Yeah.
They need to belong to somebody. When they're going through a hard time, they just need to be able to pick up the phone and say, I'm having a hard time. And you say, I'm with you. You belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I'm praying for you.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
My mama died this year. My mama wasn't a very wise woman. She wasn't a brilliant woman. She was a lover.
That's it. There you go.
And I remember when I was going to see the Pope, I got invited to see the Pope, and the first person I called was my mom. She cried on the phone and she said, get selfies. My entire family's Catholic. She said, "Get selfies. The family will never believe you're sitting with your Pope."
That's so
So I had one assignment when I went to see the Pope. And by the way, the Pope's like me. He don't like selfies. So I was like, click, 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 click. I got to get one photograph with the two of us in it for Mama. I am going to get this photograph for Mama if it kills the Pope and I. He's moving around the room, and I'm like, click, 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 click. Finally got 3 or 4 pictures with both of us in the picture. I was more excited about getting a picture with the Pope for my Mama
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
than I was anything I did last year.
Sure.
Because I belong to somebody.
Yeah. That's right.
She's not the smartest. She's not the wisest. But she's my mama.
That's right. That's
Nobody
right.
talks bad about my mama. My mama's been married 3 times. She's made some really bad choices in her life. Lots of those bad choices affected us as children. But she's my mama.
That's right.
I want to pray for you. Would you stand, please? Can you put your hand on your heart
Yes.
and say this, Lord,
Lord,
send to me
send to me
the sons and daughters
the sons and daughters
that I'm to release my grace to.
that I'm to release my grace.
Give me the courage
Give me the courage
to get past my fears
to get past my fears
of being rejected,
of being rejected,
and help me
and help
to
me
connect with the people
to connect with the people
to whom I belong.
to whom I belong.
In Jesus' name,
In Jesus' name.
amen.
Amen.
God bless you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Kris.
Thank you, Kris.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
a good word.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks for bringing that other meeting and preaching to us, for sure.
God bless you.
Can we get a picture of the 3 of you? Now. Can you get one with you and Kris? And got it. Thanks.
Bless you guys. God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kris.
That was so good for you. I'm thinking of you
I didn't
going
get to eat.
down. Bring a plate. I'm single bright.
Now, Kris is amazing.
I was
We are so fortunate to have him as one of our pastors, for sure.
That was
Okay.
that. Was that.
I think it's time to eat. Let's pray over the food, okay? Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for the word that Kris brought.
Yes.
We know that we need to be connected to the students, and we just ask that you will just open up the way to do that. Give us a heart for that, we pray in Jesus' name. Now bless this food. We'll thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
What time is it?
Amen.
Oh, we don't need to go. It's 11:04. I can't see because that's how far back it was.
He went away. He went
Oh,
out.
you know, you guys, your moms and pops to a lot of kids. You are too. But I mean, you have them over for dinner, and that's so good.
On Monday, during the Bible group, they said,
That's too bad. They haven't met us.
Yeah, that's true.
I told you, I said,
Well, see, you know what? We don't have illusions with these. We're just there. We're just there to be there, not to say anything. We don't have to work it all the time.
but yeah.
Well, I've wondered about some things. But you know what?
He said that they have said that it's like having
Yeah.
That's nice. He suggested somebody else should come. Thank you. He said, I said, are you sure it's not that you're because they called some of us over to their house and, waited out like yeah, and he said, I'm not sure yet. I don't know if you know Mark Brooks yet or and her husband is John Cook.
About 3 o'clock. Yeah, because they go in a drawer over there,
And that's what but they were more like thank you for words. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. So much. Like, there's so much shifting in from one year from this one to the next.